Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our morning coffee talk on the state of Black businesses. We're reviewing the economic report on global Black business written by Rev Dr. Dillan. So sit back, relax, grab you some coffee, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes with an announcement, and then we're going to dive right into this report. Don't go anywhere.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judges, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace be unto you. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Sajda channel. Just trying to get settled in here. We are on day 2 of our review of the Global Economic Report on the state of Black business or the Black economy, written by Rev Dr. Dillan. And Dr. Dillan is a friend of the show, and we're diving into part 2. Part 1 was a lot of data on Africa, okay? And before we dive into the data, that's really important. There's a slide I'm going to show you from the report, and then we're going to come back and talk about it, and then look at a video. Because again, as we move into these global business ventures, I want us to understand what is happening. And I know some of this is probably going to go over some of our heads because we're like, this ain't got nothing to do with me. But really, trust me, it really, really do. It really does. I know you all probably saw before we started the show my commercial launching my new oud oils. I've been collecting ouds for years. Since I've been traveling around the world, I would just collect ouds, and I say, I want my own oud blend. And when I would travel, people would tell me, oh, this means this and this means that. And I said, we need a scent that represents our evolution as a people here in America. And so I started working on curating this probably about 4 years ago. And we finally came up with a blend. And so I'm so happy to announce it. I'll show the commercial again before we end the show. But I wanted to show you the bottles because there's 2 sizes. There's a larger size and a smaller size, but you get a free crystal oil decanter with your oil. Okay, so look at this. This is the large one, and you get this free crystal decanter when you order. It's beautiful. And then this is the smaller one, and you get this small decanter when you order as well. So this one is $100 and this one is $50. I guess I could say 99 and 49.99, but y'all smarter than that. $100 for this one. This is the bigger one. And this one is like a clear crystal. This one's more like an amethyst. Okay, so you get a free decanter when you order, and I have another free surprise gift. I have this skin oil that I've been wearing for years. I'm thinking strongly about launching it, but I'm going to send you a free sample of it. It's all natural, anti-aging. It'll have your skin looking beautiful. Trust me, I've been using it for years. It'll have the ingredients on there so that you all can see it. I'm one of these persons that's allergic to everything. So if I can wear it, you probably can too, but we'll have the ingredients. You'll be able to see it. But so that's going to be your free gift. And for the holidays, this is going to be amazing. So get it before we run out. Okay, while supplies last. This is the first shipment, and inshallah, we sell out, and we'll be going into the holidays with some beautiful gift baskets and gift bags that have the new Sajda oud oil with the crystal decanters in it. Okay, that's free. The crystal decanters are free. So the larger size is $100, and then the smaller size is $50. There's a QR code right here. That one is only for the $50 one. Okay. If you want either one, all you have to do is Cash App me. The Cash App is right here. And just put oud oil, but you're going to have to make sure that you email me your address if you Cash App or Zelle me. So I'm going to put the Zelle in the chat, but you got to make sure that you email me your address so I can get it shipped out to you today. Okay. You can email me, put my email here. Let me use this email. Make it easy just to keep you guys from having so many emails. So if you want a Zelle, just use that email address, wendy100m@gmail.com. But then, and then put oil in the subject, and then email me your address so that I can get it out to you right away. Okay. If you don't email me, I'm not going to be able to send it to you because there's no way on Zelle. If you want the smaller one, then you can use the QR code here. But I know a lot of people don't like using their credit card. They prefer to use Zelle or Cash App. Those options are available for you as well. But the larger size is only available if you Zelle or Cash App me, because I only have a limited number of these. The smaller size is going to be the ongoing size, but I just thought, as a beautiful promotion, and I saw these crystal bottles, I just thought, you got to have it. All right, so we're going to dive into the report. Let me put this up here. This particular slide, I just found fascinating, and I'm going to tell you why. And it says here, Reverend Dillan wrote that children, youth, and education, all 25 countries with the youngest populations in the world are in Africa. Why is that? It's because the Europeans, in many cases, brought in their guns. They could never have overtaken Africa without weapons of mass destruction, whether it was the invention of the machine gun or just a regular gun. Back in the day, that's how they did it. They never would have been able to overtake the warriors in Africa were it not for the guns. So then the conflict that ensued, because when the Europeans went in during the scramble for Africa, they made treaties and created certain protections for local government officials, if you will, local leadership, and then that caused a lot of rifts. So there was a lot of corruption that was sewn into the fabric of the government. And we're going to look at a video that talks about that here in a minute. And then over time, many of the older and adult populations were unalived. And whether it was through disease that was spread in the countries, all kinds of stuff. Many of those diseases that affected the Europeans, like malaria and things like that, at first did not impact us on the continent. And then through a lot of germ warfare and stuff like that, these continents have been ravaged, all with the goal of taking over the natural resources. Okay, so on the continent of Africa, the median age, not the average, but the median is 19. So it's a very, very young continent. You have the median age in Asia is 32. South America is 33. Oceania is 33.4. North America, 38.6. And Europe, 44.1. Okay. Africa is experiencing a population explosion, and all indicators and world growth forecasts point to a continent that will more than triple in population by the year 2100. So the scramble for Africa is real, and it has resurged because of the explosion and the potential population growth. Okay. The key factor is its explosive youth population. And according to the World Economic Forum and most other reliable sources, more than 60% of Africa's population is under the age of 25. Okay. This is a noteworthy trend with both positive and negative implications, driven by the preparedness of the continent and its 54 independent nations. Such rapid growth can be a strain on the economies of many fragile nations, considering factors like food security, healthcare, education, and other basic human needs. Here's another issue with that. On this show, we're really invested in the preservation of history. And I know a lot of times, when we're young, we like to say, forget that. It's all about the youth. It's all about the youth. Beautiful thing with that is that in many cases it is, but it's so very important to know your history, to understand what has happened so that you can avoid it happening again in the future. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that history is the most qualified to reward its researcher. So don't be that median 19-year-old age person or that 32-year-old, 33-year-old person going, forget that, forget history. I don't care what happened, because guess what? One thing about this colonizer, he really does not create. He sets up a system that conquers, destroys, overtakes, harvests other cultures and natural resources, and then uses that system over and over and over again. They have not invented anything new. When I show you this video and you see what's happening with the scramble for Africa, you see it again today. But if you don't know your history, you're going to walk right into it in the name of being drunk over your youth. So always study your history and sit at the feet of your elders. Why? So that you can learn what to do and what not to do. There's valuable information there. All right. Okay. So I'm going to take this off the screen and I'm going to show you all this video that's going to give you a brief history on the scramble for Africa. And I think it's important that we understand what happened in Africa that caused the median age to be so young. And so that our youth, as they're looking at this, they're not just looking at it like, oh, that's Auntie Sajda. She always talking about history stuff, whatever. So that you're not looking at it like that. You say, you know what, let me learn something, because one day you're going to be a leader. One day you're going to be a world leader. You're going to be a business leader. You're going to be a leader in your industry. And guess what? You need to know your history, because the enemy generally creates a pattern. And when the pattern works, they just keep doing it over and over and over again. It may look a little differently. It may have different language, but they just keep doing the same pattern over and over again. When you study, you'll see what I mean. All right, so check this out.
Africa is a large continent home to immense culture and history. Surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea to the north, the Indian Ocean to the southeast, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west, it is the world's second largest and second most populous continent. It contains 54 countries and is extremely diverse in terms of ethnicity and language. The borders of these countries were largely decided by European nations during the late 19th and early 20th century in what is known as the Scramble for Africa. The Sahara is a defining feature of Africa, the largest desert in the world. The Sahara's sheer size and magnitude acted as a major obstacle for communication, trade, and exchange of ideas. However, there is evidence of Roman expeditions and explorations who were able to move across the desert and into the interior of Africa, with the aim to secure sources of gold, salt, and spices. For centuries, Arabs also maintained trade relations with the vast empires of West Africa, such as the Ghana and Mali Empire, establishing trade routes that secured gold, ivory, and slaves. The Portuguese began expeditions down the west coast of Africa in the 15th century, and history tells us of the profound effect that followed. During the 1480s, the explorer Diogo Cão was the first to establish contact with the Congo Kingdom, situated south of the Congo River. The Congo Kingdom was eager to make use of Portuguese teachers and craftsmen, and the Congo kings allowed Catholic missionaries to work among their people. The Portuguese traded guns, cloth, and other European luxuries for slaves who were captured by the Congo in wars against rival kingdoms. By the 17th century, Portugal and other European powers began to settle along the coast of Africa. Europeans would buy slaves in Africa, transport them to the Americas, and exchange them for valuable goods like sugar, coffee, and tobacco, which were then sold at premium prices in Europe. Arguably, between the 16th and 18th century, over 12 million Africans were enslaved and transported in harsh conditions to work on plantations in the Americas. In the south of Africa, the first European settlement was established by the Dutch East India Company, where merchants used the location as a waypoint for ongoing voyages to the Dutch East Indies. They came into contact with the Khoikhoi, a nomadic indigenous population of southwestern Africa, comprising of hundreds of clans. Over time, this settlement, known as the Cape of Good Hope, grew in size, resulting in the Khoikhoi losing land and cattle to the Dutch, who adopted the name Boer, meaning farmer. Due to a shortage of labour, the Dutch imported slaves from Mozambique, Madagascar, and many Indonesian islands. The Cape of Good Hope came under the control of the British during the Napoleonic Wars. The abolition of slavery ended slavery in the Cape in 1834. In 1835, the Boers embarked on the Great Trek, as the abolition of the slave trade resulted in financial catastrophe. As a result, Dutch citizens known as Voortrekkers moved further inland into Africa. They formed the Free Orange State and Transvaal, which was recognised by the British. In the north, France launched a war of conquest against Algeria in 1830, which would last until 1847. Meanwhile, in the United States, there was a movement to settle freeborn blacks and freed slaves and transport them to Africa. Most whites, and later a small minority of blacks, believed that blacks would be better off in Africa. The American Colonization Society began transporting them to the closest point of Africa to establish a colony in 1822. By 1847, the settlers issued a Declaration of Independence and established the Independent Republic of Liberia. The construction of the Suez Canal in 1869 verified its importance as a route for trade with India and China. And in 1882, Egypt was occupied by British forces during the Anglo-Egyptian War, subsequently revealing the potential riches that Africa offered. There were several European explorers who explored the continent. Perhaps one of the most famous was David Livingstone, a Scottish missionary who attempted to convert the natives he encountered to Christianity and strove to find the source of the Nile. Henry Moult Stanley was famous for his exploration of Central Africa. He worked for King Leopold II of Belgium and helped map out the Congo region. So why were there no major explorations into the interior of Africa before this? Well, there were limited seaworthy rivers, tropical diseases, hostile natives, and weapons were not as advanced as they were in the 19th century. During the 19th century, most European powers experienced a dramatic growth of productivity triggered by industrialization. European countries overproduced goods and were consequently searching for new markets. Interest turned towards the acquisition of land in order to grow agricultural products for European markets. Europeans moved into the interior of Africa.
Life is of little value in Rome, living in the shadow of the rich and powerful.
To extract raw materials such as rubber, palm oil, gold, copper, and diamonds. These natural resources made Africa a vital resource for the European economy. Between 1884 and 1885, the Berlin Conference was called by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. 14 representatives of 14 European countries attended the conference, including Britain, Belgium, France, Portugal, and Italy. Notably, no African representatives were invited. The aim was to discuss how European countries would claim colonial land in Africa and avoid war between them. Each country affirmed that they would bring civilization in the form of Christianity and trade to each region they occupied. Although most of these African colonies were controlled by nations, the Berlin Conference allowed King Leopold II of Belgium to become the sole ruler of a vast area that is today the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The intent was to make it an area of free trade for all Europeans in Africa. However, in practice, Leopold kept out most European traders and granted concessions to various corporations to exploit the region's resources. In 1908, it was revealed that under King Leopold's instructions, native people of the Congo were forced to farm wild rubber as a form of tax payment to the colonial government. Those unable to carry out these instructions had their hand or foot severed. Once news of these atrocities became known, King Leopold was stripped of his colony, and the vast Congo region was ruled by the Belgian government. Understandably, Europe held the technological advantage. Bands of just a few hundred men and barely a handful of machine guns proceeded to overwhelm and obliterate thousands of Africans. The machine gun was a revolutionary gun that could fire rapid shots at an unparalleled speed. The effectiveness of the weapon was obvious in Sudan, where a British force, armed with roughly 20 machine guns and a small number of gunboats, overpowered Sudanese forces and effectively opened the door for colonization. But the Europeans, in their quest to carve up the continent, would encounter resistance. By the early 1880s, Abyssinia, or modern-day Ethiopia, was in danger of invasion from the British, French, and Italians. Abyssinia's emperor made a decision to exploit European rivalries. After minor concessions to France in return for weapons, Italy grew nervous of the growing French interest in the country and offered the emperor Italian weapons. Throughout the 1880s, Abyssinia grew stronger and stronger, securing more modern weapons from the British and Russians. In 1889, Italy claimed Abyssinia as an Italian protectorate. The emperor rejected this. Italy, craving the glory of victory, ordered its troops into battle in 1894. Outnumbered, the Italians were defeated, and in 1896, Abyssinia remained independent. The British encountered resistance in South Africa against the Boers. They had previously recognized the independence of the Boer republics, but the discovery of diamonds and the potential of a German-Boer alliance led to war. The Boers used guerrilla warfare and utilized their skills of marksmanship to hinder British advancement, but in the end, British forces prevailed. Great Britain dominated the African continent with the control of Egypt, South Africa, Nigeria, and the Gold Coast. The French occupied vast expanses of West Africa. The Germans controlled modern-day Tanzania as well as Namibia. The Italians controlled Somalia and Libya, whilst the Portuguese exerted full control over Angola and Mozambique. By 1914, 90% of Africa had been divided between 7 European countries, with only Ethiopia and the African-American state of Liberia remaining independent nations.
I think that gave you guys a good gist of what the process of what has happened in Africa, and it should be a predictor of what is happening now and what will potentially happen in the future. And so I encourage you to study that so that you understand how to combat that and how to incorporate that into the expansion of your global businesses. Because you can't just get on the internet and go, hey, everybody, let's go to Africa. Let's start businesses. You got to understand what you're dealing with, both from having boots on the ground. You have to understand what you're dealing with in terms of history. Okay. Good stuff, important stuff. Okay, I am struggling to reserve my opinion because I really just want you guys to have the facts from this wonderful report. This next page here goes over global age group comparisons. If you want to order this report, just go to my social media page. There's a link there. You can check out yesterday's show. I forgot to put the link up here today, but it's written by Reverend Dr. Dennis Dillan, and the report. Let me give you the right name because I have so many names in my head, and I am really, really struggling here to kind of just give you the facts, right? To be a journalist, like, anyway, it's the economic report, the state of the Black world, the Africa edition 2024. Okay. And I'll add the link to the chat once we get off. And but if you listened yesterday, you saw it. Anyway, if you look at the global age group comparisons, in the US, Blacks have the youngest population in the United States at the age of 38, median age, or 30. The US population, the median age is 38, the general population. Black people, 30, whites, 43, Hispanics, 32, Asians, 34. There's so much that has contributed to that age. And then in Africa, with the median age being 19, it's even younger than ours. So there's opportunity to use the spoils of war to gain an advantage, but we got to be paying attention. Let me just keep going. Receiving and sending money. I mentioned this to you all. When you go to Africa, make sure that you've gone there several times, that when you're engaging in business, you're working with organization like Sister Melissa's organization or the Department of Commerce, and you understand how to earn your money and bring your money out or spend your money while you're there. If you're staying there, you may be in a position where you're kind of going back and forth from between Africa and the US. And so if you're there, you may want to utilize the money that you're earning while you're there on the continent. And then you may need to come back here and pay some bills and take care of some stuff because you've been gone. Make sure you understand how to do that. Make sure you understand that if you're here in the States and your primary business is here and you have a smaller business in Africa, make sure you understand how to get your money there so that you can secure your housing and different things like that. Okay. And then you're going to have to make sure that you have somebody to help you that you can trust while you're moving back and forth. Okay. But this one just talks about receiving and sending money and remittances. You all can view that when you purchase the report. These are the outflow dollars. Highest inflow remittances are in India. So it looks like people are spending a lot of money there. And then you have top 10 remittance countries in terms of outflow is the US, meaning that we just have a large number of export dollars, money that we're spending around the world. That's a whole nother set of information. These are the inflow remittances. If you drop down here to the Caribbean, I think a lot of that is probably tourism dollars that are coming into the country. You have Jamaica, Haiti, Guyana, Bermuda, Trinidad and Tobago. We talked about this yesterday. And then if you go to the top and you take a look at Africa, with the largest inflows, we're looking at Egypt, Nigeria. We know that Nigeria is primarily oil, Morocco, Ghana. In a lot of the West African countries, there's a lot of rubber. So what the European business people did was they made a lot of, let me say it like this. There were a lot of inventions that were created in Europe, many of them by Black people, like the Model T, the car, the motorized vehicle that Ford popularized. But then during the Industrial Revolution, the European countries began to do something that's called mass production. And when they began to mass produce these items, they needed an abundance and immediate access to the natural resources so that they can push them out and produce it and make more money. So take the car, for example. As they mass produced cars, they needed rubber. So companies like Firestone set up headquarters in Liberia. You have the Congo that's also big with the rubber and the rubber trees. And so they needed access to these resources. Oil was used to fuel the cars. So you got countries like Nigeria that were colonized by the British and didn't have their own freedom until 1952. So that oil was being exported or exploited up out of the ground there by the European business people who began to control the government because they controlled the currencies. Okay, so this is the type of predatory capitalism that we have to make sure that we study, so that as we're setting up our systems and processes, we are not utilizing and creating the same business models that caused us to be in the situation that we're in now. So this modern day form of capitalism was created off of the backs of the natural resources and the human resources in the most richest continent on the planet, which is in Africa. It was also built in South Africa, South America, and then later on North America. But the system was created to mass produce. There was a massive trade, slave trade. So all of these inventions and these resources were being taken from Africa to feed European interests run by corporations in these various companies. Okay, so if you understand how business works and how that economy was set up, then you can really easily understand what is happening today and what is more than likely going to happen in the future, because they generally don't reinvent the wheel. The system and the process is the same. It just looks differently. So even though at the beginning, you saw at the video, in the beginning of the colonization of Africa, they were having problems, right? Out of warriors like Shaka Zulu and people like that. Well, then the invention of the gun and then the automatic weapon allowed a few small numbers were able to go in. My internet's doing some weird stuff this morning. A handful were able to go in and conquer large countries and large numbers, okay, of our people because of these automatic weapons. And then once those few people represented by government, so even people like Christopher Columbus, he was backed by a company. There was a company and a government that financed those expeditions for the purpose of gaining access to resources so that they can engage in trade and commerce on their land. So yeah, the machine gun was a game changer. Were it not for the machine gun, we would not be having this conversation. Okay, so when you start thinking about the use of weapons to conquer, you see the same thing happening today. When you start talking about businesses and companies, I think what has happened over time is that the system hasn't changed, but what they've done is they just decided that, okay, we may keep the company names hidden because we don't want the public to know what these companies are financing. That's why it's a big deal when people come out and say, well, BlackRock owns most of the private prisons. And then they also control the music industry. And then we go into, well, why do people even think that gangster rap and all that is Black culture? It never was. See, these are all company-driven inventions and systems and processes designed to control natural resources. Okay. Hope y'all get this. Hope y'all getting this. Look at this statistic down here at the bottom left. U.S. money transfer market share. Okay. So as money is being moved, you got Western Union controlling the lion's share, and then MoneyGram. Man, there's so much we can dig into that and to understand, because are the big companies and corporations transferring money using Western Union and MoneyGram? Probably not. But we are, which is putting a large amount of fees in these companies' pockets. So the question becomes, how are the major companies transferring their money? Right? So if I'm a company headquartered in Switzerland and I do business in Ghana, how am I transferring my money back and forth? Right? So a couple things here on the right: Nigeria, remittances, inflow. Where's the money that is flowing into Nigeria coming from? You got Europe at 8.1 billion, North America at 7.53 billion, within the continent of 2.9 billion, Asia 386 million. In Jamaica, the $8.35 billion that flowed into Jamaica in 2021, 5.45 of that came from the United States. 1.1 billion of that came from the United Kingdom, Canada, Cayman Islands, and others. So this will tell you how the economy in Europe is directly going to impact Nigeria, okay, and North America. So when you see the protesting around regarding inflation in Nigeria, a lot of that has to do with the impact of the European and the North America, meaning the US economy. So as America falls, the economy of these other countries is going to fall as well, because you can see the impact of the origin of the money that goes into those countries. The commentary here says, among majority Black countries in the world, the Gambia, followed by Jamaica and Haiti, has the largest percentage of remittances to GDP. So it's all about production, right? What do you produce? How do you control your production? And then how do you control the spending? We've been talking about this on a microcosmic level here in the United States forever. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that this principle very early on. And if we study history, we can see how this process has impacted the economies that are set up around the world. Okay, now let's go into this. I know this is interesting for a lot of you all. We probably won't get, what time is it? We'll do a couple slides here, but this one, now we're getting into slide 38, the power of the Black American consumer. More than $2 trillion in buying power. Okay, with a per capita GDP of $39,820, we will be the 8th largest economy in the world. If we were united as a nation, we would be the 8th largest economy in the world, in Black America. Now, this, now we're getting into some stuff here, right? We had to cover the African piece because we have to understand how connected we are to our family in Africa, and how healing the traumas between us is so very important. But look at the power that we got here in America. U.S. population and Black buying power. All right. Blacks at 45.2 million in our population. I always wonder if those numbers are right. And are they, what are they counting? Where do those numbers come from? I'm sure he's got Reverend Dillan does a great job with his sources, so we can look that up. But look at the top Black buying power states. Look at Texas, which is number 1 in top Black buying power for Black people, 30 million. Then you got New York, 19.3 million. Then you got Georgia, 11 million. Florida, Georgia, 1.1 million, 11 million, I'm sorry. Florida, 22 million. You got California. These are the population numbers I'm giving you. So when you look at, so let's compare this. Look at Texas with 30 million people, 4 million Black people. Okay. New York, 19 million people, 3.7 million Black people. Georgia, 11 million people, 3.6 million Black people. Florida, so look at those two first columns there and the state. That's going to give you an idea of the ratio. Then go to the third column and look at the total buying power in 2021. So in Texas alone, okay, the total population had $1.6 trillion of buying power, but look at the Black buying power in Texas, 167 billion, projected to be 200 billion in 2025. Look at New York, 146 billion. Look at Georgia, 130 billion. Look at Florida, 129 billion. This is our buying power in these states. Maryland, North Carolina, Virginia, Illinois. Look at this. If we took these top 12 states and made sure that we were united and making sure that our dollars circulated at least 1 to 2 more times in our community, we could change the trajectory of our economics of the Black economy with this kind of buying power. We don't need every state and we really don't need everybody, but again, unity, pooling our resources, and we got to stop this wanton criticism, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says. We're just focusing on those 3 things. I believe that we're going to be forced to be more united than what we've been. I think that the universe is shaking things up right now, and we're going to see a shift. A major cosmic shift is going to be happening very soon. It's happening now because gatekeepers are being removed. So you have gatekeepers surrounding our community. And again, you got to go back to history. This was done during slavery. It was done during this time in Africa in the 17th and 18th centuries. You have gatekeepers that look like people from the community who surround the proverbial perimeter of the community. And their job is to make sure that you come through them in order to get access to the bag. And in order to get access to the bag, they may be corrupt enough or being told to be corrupt enough to get you to sell your soul. So you can't get to the bag until you sell their soul. You don't believe me? Try to make a lot of money in the entertainment industry without being a certain type of person. You're going to be struggling. You're going to engage in some kind of activities at one point or another. I used to be really sad because my entertainment business belly flopped. And at first I didn't understand why. And now I understand. I learned later that I wasn't participating in the shenanigans and the lifestyle. And now I'm happy to say I owned a failed entertainment company, because now I understand the power and the gatekeeping system. I understand it now. I understand it as I study it, the way it was set up during slavery. I understand the mindset that came along with it during slavery, that some of us know as like the Willie Lynch letter, or the Willie Lynch outlined in the Willie Lynch letter, or the Willie Lynch mindset. Okay. Very, very key. We're going to go through, let's see, we can do a couple more slides here before we end this morning. Black America's composition, U.S. and foreign born Blacks. So when you start talking about Black America, who are we talking about? There's 36.9 million of us that are U.S. born. Okay. This is where the argument on reparation comes in, because they're asking, well, who gets it? And so this is an interesting, I'm gonna hold my tongue on that. Jamaicans, there's a lot of Jamaicans in the U.S., 850,000, Haitians, 772,000, Nigerians, 411,000, Ethiopians, 263,000, Dominicans, 220,000, Ghanaians, 181,000, Trinidad and Tobago, 178,000, Guyanese, 154,000, Kenyans, 137,000, Liberians, 91,000, Somalians, 87,000, and Mexicans, 78,000. Y'all didn't know it was Black people in Mexico, huh? You got to study. You got to study. Don't be all this, I'm about it. I'm about the new culture. I'm about the, forget the old culture. Don't do it, because there's a system. I just talked about the gatekeeping system and the gatekeeping process. You have to study that system, number one, so that you know how to recognize it moving forward. But number two, so that you don't become a gatekeeper. Because guess what? You and I have been trained to be gatekeepers. We have not been trained to buck the system. We have not been trained to create separate systems. So while we're dissing our ancestors and the people who came before us, we're falling right into the hands of the people who are doing all these psych ops and these mind controls and brainwashing of our community. We've fallen right into the hands of that. There's a calculation for you. There's a calculation for people like you who disregard history, who got a problem with somebody who doesn't look like you. There's a calculation for you. They know how your mind is going to work. Why? Because they created the mind. So look, here's a breakdown. We won't go through all of that, but I just wanted you to see Black America's composition, U.S. and foreign born Blacks. U.S. born Blacks, we are 36.9 million. Just those numbers alone are powerful. Powerful. The number of completion is all up in those numbers. Anyway, per capita GDP by race. Okay, I'm gonna make this the last slide, and we may come back tomorrow and go deeper into this one, because I'm just writing this down, because this one is worth analyzing and discussing. Look at the per capita GDP by race. Look at the buying power growth by race. America's top 10 concentrated buying power markets by race. Buying power in Mississippi. Look at that. Number one for Black people. Buying power in Georgia. Buying power in Maryland, DC, Louisiana, Alabama, Delaware. Look at our buying power here. Other states with the fastest Black buying power. You got California, Florida, Utah, North Dakota, Nevada. Very interesting stuff. So we're going to come back and pick up here at slide number 41 tomorrow when we come back. Okay. I want to thank you all for paying attention. I know this is not our normal spiritual, mental mindset stuff, but it's very important that we study history. You all know that on this show, on this channel, we are avid respecters of history. We don't diss our ancestors. We understand what happened to them. We pay attention to what was done that we agree with and what was done that we feel we can improve upon. Okay. All right. So one more announcement. I gave this announcement earlier. For those of you who missed it, I'll show the commercial on the way out. You'll get to see it again. But the Sajda Oud oils have been launched. Here they are right here. You got the large size, that is $100. And you got the smaller size, that's $50. There's two ways that you can purchase this. And guess what? You get a free crystal decanter that on your first order. So this is free. And I'll give the decanters as long as they last. And I have another free gift for you, which is a beautiful skin oil that I wear and have been producing, that I'm considering putting out there. So I'm going to give you some of that as well. If you want to get it, you can use the QR code right here, but the QR code is only going to be for the small ones, and you'll have to use a credit card. Okay. If you want to go Cash App or Zelle, that's fine too. You just got to remember to send me your address. Okay. So if you want a Zelle, you just go to wendy100m@gmail.com. That's Zelle. The smaller, $50. The large is $100. I'm not even charging you shipping because I want to get this out. I want you to see how beautiful it is. Okay. If you go use the QR code, you're going to have to pay for shipping. But if you Zelle or Cash App, I'll take care of the shipping. You'll get your free bottle, large or small. And I'll let you guys know. We only got a limited number of these large ones. So, but they're beautiful. They're crystal. They got the beautiful crystals on them. The other one is amethyst. Or you can Cash App. Either way, you just got to make sure you email me and say, send me a picture of your screen showing that you paid, so I know who you are. Send me an email and say, hey, I've just paid. Here's my address. Okay. So the Oud oils have been launched. All right. So check out the commercial and we'll see you all tomorrow. We're going to start with slide 41 of the report. If you want to order the report, just go to my social media pages, click the link, and you can order it. But it is important, again, that as we strategize to become world economic leaders, that we understand what happened and we understand what to do and what not to do. We understand how to recognize what happened, and we understand how to prevent ourselves from becoming predators ourselves. All right. I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace and blessings, family. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can hit that super chat down there at the bottom. Spread, share, tell a friend. And I'll see you then. All right.